Paul Rafile has been on the front lines of cybercrime and online exploitation, exposing the ways social media platforms are constantly putting kids at risk. Today, we're talking with him about the steps parents can take to protect their kids, both online and in real life. All right, so before we bring Paul in, I just have to tell you how excited I am to have him here in the studio shortly. This man is so brave and so bold and so smart. And I want to tell you about something that happened, which I probably won't talk about with him, but like you need to have this backstory. So back in April of 2024, I actually signed up to attend a webinar to learn about the state of child exploitation and sextortion online. And it was a webinar put together by some pretty prominent people, trusted people. And Paul was one of the speakers on this webinar. And what I didn't know, and probably a lot of people didn't know, is that he had been offered a job. Meta had extended a job offer to him to help fight sextortion and protect kids on their platform. So he had this job offer for Meta. He was part of this webinar to help educate and empower the world to help protect kids online. And after that webinar wrapped, his job offer was rescinded. So I will let you make your own conclusions, but that was really telling. And what I think is such a miss on Meta's part is they rescinded his job offer, but that didn't silence his efforts. In fact, even more children are going to be safer online now because of that. So they, I think, made a bad choice. They should have hired him. They should have kept that offer to help make their platform safer, because they're not. But everybody else in the world gets to benefit now from that loss on their end. So yeah, that's the backstory. If you want to look into that, just Google his name and you can see a lot of things that have been published about that. And it's a really bad look for them. But anyway, I think we're all going to win from today's episode. So with that, we're going to welcome Paul into the studio. Paul, I am so excited that you're here. Thank you so much. Your work to help prevent some of the most horrific things that are happening to children online is truly saving lives. And for those who may not know you yet, can you tell everybody a bit more about yourself and your background?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me here. This is kind of a new space, a new area to me as well. I started out my career tracking ISIS on social media.
Okay. Wow. Heavy. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I've been always focused on kind of these transnational organized crime, terrorist threats, really big, heavy topics. And that all changed a couple of years ago when I started to focus on the surge of financially motivated sextortion, viewing this as an organized crime and viewing it through that lens, through a lens of harming tens or hundreds of thousands of people at scale. So that's kind of catapulted me into this space, and I'm super happy to be here for this chat today.
Wow. How did you even get into that? I mean, what did you study? Self-taught? Your career path? Like, how did you even get there?
Yeah, so I was always interested in like national security studies and global affairs. So that's what I studied in undergrad. Mm-hmm. Then moved into, working on a government contract to track ISIS on social media, monitor their activity. Then I moved over into the corporate world. Mm-hmm. But things really changed 2 years ago when one of my friends actually became a victim and was targeted by a sextortion scam. And he came to me as the kind of online investigations guy of the group. And, I didn't know much about this crime or about this scam at all. And as we'll talk about the scam, you can understand why the victims are very perplexed on what to do. They don't know if they can block the criminal. They don't know how to exit the situation. So that's when I came in to try to assist with that situation. And where that led me was, I started to look online with who this was happening to. What were other victims saying? What's the advice that victims should take? Mm-hmm. And I was shocked and surprised by a few things that I saw. First, I was shocked by the ages of some of these victims, 13 and 14-year-olds saying that they were being sexually exploited, blackmailed, and being forced to pay money, gift cards. I was also shocked by the trauma that a lot of these victims had. I was seeing comments from victims saying that they were thinking of ending their life because they didn't see any other way to end this situation, this exploitation. And lastly, which I think was kind of the most important piece, was these victims were all saying the same thing. It was happening on the same platforms. It was happening using the same exact methods and tactics, and even down to the same scripted messages.
Oh my
where,
gosh.
Where victims all across the nation and multiple nations were getting these threatening messages from criminals that were the exact same, down to the same typos. So I knew that this wasn't just a whole bunch of isolated incidents. I started to look at this like organized crime,
right,
and approach this in an organized fashion. The only way to combat organized crime is to be organized. So that was my effort in that regard.
What apps and platforms are the worst when it comes to allowing the exploitation of children today? Where is this happening?
Yeah, so most of the financial sextortion that we are seeing today is happening on Instagram, owned by Meta, Snapchat, and TikTok.
Even with the parental controls that they have released.
Even with all these parental controls and safety features, these three apps are making up the vast majority of financial sextortion scams. And that's by design. A lot of folks tend to think, oh, this crime can happen on any platform, any gaming device. I'll tell you, I have not heard of a single financial sextortion case starting on a gaming platform.
Wow.
It's almost all happening on Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok by design. So, for example, you think about Instagram, the moment a teen accepts a scammer's friend request or follow request, their entire social network, their entire following list is exposed to that criminal. And we know that is the primary source of leverage that these criminals are using. As soon as they convince the teen or the child into a compromising situation, they use those lists as leverage. Don't block me, or else I'll share these compromising images with all of your followers, all of your friends. So, we see that over on Instagram, over on Snapchat. Of course, it's known for disappearing photos. So teens tend to think that, if they're going to engage in risky behavior, they think it's safer to do it on Snapchat.
Right.
But of course, the criminals are screenshotting and screen capturing that content as well. And
just by design, we have seen errors in judgment, I believe, optimizing for growth over child safety, whether it's Snapchat having the quick ad feature of people they think your child might know, and they just add. Of course, predators and sextortionists are thrown into that ring. Or we've seen from whistleblowers that predators and pedophiles, I just made a new word, pedophiles, we'll copyright that, they were being shown suggested accounts to follow, and those were children being surfaced to them. Like, let's start at the design level to make these apps safer for kids, but of course they haven't done that yet. What are some of the common misconceptions or misunderstandings that parents have about sextortion? And while you think about the answer to that, I'll start with just the fact that they don't think it could happen to their child, or they don't realize how often it's happening, or they think my kid's too smart. But good kids make bad choices, and they're up against biology. So, but please expand on that. Yeah.
So I think when we talk about the word sextortion, this term used to be applied several years ago towards a former ex-boyfriend or girlfriend would blackmail the other one into staying with them or performing sexual activity under the threat of releasing those images.
Right.
So it was purely a sex crime at that point. Now, scammers have found a way to make this a financial crime, and that's when this crime has really, really exploded in recent years. So scammers have found a way to make this crime happen very quickly and to get them money extremely quickly. Virtually all of the financial sextortion that's targeting minors today is coming from a cybercrime entity out of West Africa called the Yahoo Boys. And they're operating on these mainstream social media platforms advertising their wealth that they're getting from this scam, unfortunately.
Why don't the platforms just shut down the accounts out of that area?
Well, Nigeria in particular is Africa's largest economy. So it is very difficult because these criminals are so widespread across an area. They're not in a scam call center,
right?
For example, right? That would make things a little bit easier. So these criminals are very dispersed. And what they've done is, they've created Facebook groups, for example, where they share the methods of how they conduct scams.
Which is so depraved. I mean, there are literal manuals online for how to groom, exploit, harm children, convince them to do atrocious things. I don't understand the humans that participate in that. And do they have a soul or a conscience? Please continue.
That's right. And, some of these Facebook groups had over 20,000 members in them.
Oh my gosh, Paul.
And public groups.
Paul.
So it's not like they couldn't have just looked. Meta could have looked and seen this.
Okay. It's just so it's so disturbing, and it's so hard for everybody to wrap their brains around. But it's happening so much that the FBI has released multiple warnings warning the public. This is a problem to pay attention to. This isn't clickbait. This isn't like headlines to try to get traffic to a media entity. Like, this is a problem. This is a danger. It is a real and present danger. It is affecting your children.
And according to the FBI, this is the fastest growing crime targeting kids today. So it is a clear and present danger.
Yeah. You would think that the people who have a responsibility and duty of care to protect kids would be all over it. Why is this not being stopped? For example, I went to the Child Rescue Coalition headquarters around 2020, before COVID, it was like January, February. And they pulled up a map of known IP addresses that were distributing or receiving child sexual abuse material. And I saw these little red dots continue to pop up on a map in real time. And my first question then was, why is there not a law enforcement official showing up at every single door where there's a red dot, banging down that door, taking that tech, arresting that person, and stopping this? And they said that there aren't enough law enforcement officials and there aren't enough trained law enforcement officials specifically around this crime to combat it at scale. Not only that, but the law is meant to protect children, essentially, are not strong enough. And these predators, these offenders, there aren't stringent enough laws to prevent them from going down this path. So I guess kind of same question applies to, there are things that can be done to put a dent in this and to keep kids safer online. And they're not being done. I don't know if you want to talk to what those are or why, but we need more info.
Yeah, I mean, this crime I would have thought with the increased awareness and publicity in the past year that maybe the crime would have started to go down a bit in terms of numbers.
Right.
Unfortunately, the 2025 data this year, it will exceed over 50,000 reported cases here in the U.S. And that's just the reported cases.
Right.
We know that these victims, they are feeling shameful, fearful, confusion. They don't know what to do, who to report to. So when I say 50,000 reported cases, I'm probably thinking closer to 10x, 500,000 unreported cases.
Right.
And compare that, back in 2021, there were only 139 reported cases of this crime here in the U.S.
Oh my gosh.
So 139 to 50,000 in the span of just 4 years shows just how unprepared that tech platforms and law enforcement is to deal with this crime. And so there's so much more that the platforms can be doing. For example, Meta can simply hide those friends and followers lists for all teen accounts by default.
Right.
And they didn't. Instead, what they did was they said, we're going to hide the followers lists from accounts that we detect as from accounts that might be sextorters. First of all, why are you not just blocking or quarantining those accounts so they can't friend anybody?
Yeah. Why are they allowed to even use the platform?
Secondly, right, then why not just make this the privacy default for all teens?
Right.
Because of course they're not going to detect all the accounts. And, we've already seen teen suicides this year, unfortunately, after Meta rolled out this so-called protection, but yet somehow the criminals still had the victim's entire followers list screenshotted to blackmail them with. So there's tons of things they could be doing. Another thing Meta recently rolled out to protect against sextortion, they said, was their nudity protection feature. Now, what this is, it sounds great, right. Nudity protection. So what it is Meta's AI is scanning images that are being sent to or from teen accounts. This is on by default for all teens. And if it detects a nude image trying to be sent to or from a teen account, instead of blocking that image, there will be a little pop-up that says, "Are you sure you want to send this?"
Right.
And any recipient can just tap to unblur the image of presumably CSAM.
How is that a protection?
It's not.
Exactly.
And it's probably even worse on them because they're now knowingly engaging in the transmission of child sexual abuse material. Their AI knows it's CSAM and is delivering it anyway.
I am so angry, so floored. Like, who in the world on that team in a decision-making level could think this is going to be good? This is good. It's not good. I mean, if I'm 13 and somebody that I'm interested in sends me a nude, but it's blurred, it's like, "Are you sure you want to see this?" Of course I do. Absolutely. I'm 13. My brain isn't fully formed. Like, okay, yeah, anyway.
And it's like, if their AI has the ability to detect and blur potential CSAM, then it has the ability to detect and block it.
Oh my gosh.
So why not just block it?
100%. And like, don't even get me started on Apple and the smoke and mirrors they're putting out there. I mean, if the Bark phone, when a child goes to try to take a nude photo or video, can realize that's what's happening and not even let that be taken, like that media won't even be saved to the camera of that Android device. Apple could do that. Meta, Snapchat, TikTok, all of these platforms have the ability to make their tech safer for kids. If Bark can do it with our team of 100 people, like, that's insane that they're not doing that. But we know why, right? They make money off of the time spent in their app and on their platform, and our children are products. So, you have been part of multiple sting operations in an effort to catch sextortion scammers, which, thank you for that work, because I've been a part of a team that has done that work too, on a not as frequently as you have, and it's grueling. It's gross. You need to like take some time after doing things like that to just reset and have hope for humanity. But from your perspective, what has been the hardest part of that? And then on the other hand, what's been the most rewarding?
Yeah, thank you. I had a really exciting opportunity earlier this year to work with a Channel 4 documentary in the UK. And what we did was we tried to essentially scam the scammer. We created several Instagram accounts as young, teen and young adult men, boys, who are really the targets of this scam. Over 90% of victims reported to NCMEC are boys aged 14 to 17. So they are really primarily the target here. And so we created these decoy accounts to try to see if we would get sextorted on Instagram. And of course we did. And I was able to partner with, out in the UK, Jordan Stevens, who is an amazing hip-hop artist.
Yes.
And he really brave soul. He was kind of the star of this documentary. He voluntarily got himself blackmailed for this sting operation.
Oh my gosh.
And so, the DMs were coming in from these, pretty women and girls his age. And, they, of course, the conversation starts out very normal, but then it turns quickly flirtatious. Mm-hmm. And the criminals, the scammers, will actually send a nude photo first and then request the victim, the target, to do the same.
Right.
And the moment that happens, as soon as that, teen or young man sends a photo, that's when the blackmail begins. And exactly as we predicted, the criminals had screenshotted our Instagram followers. They started to threaten to send it to all of them. The criminals even started to call Jordan via the Instagram device. Via Instagram, they started to call him.
Yes, and that's chilling.
It's chilling because, he's threatening, he's yelling, "Do you want me to ruin your life? I'm going to, send me $200 right now." And, imagine a 13-year-old victim in that scenario. They think they were just talking to Jesse from the other
science class.
Right. And now you have this full-grown man with an accent yelling at you on the phone, saying he's going to ruin your life.
Kill your parents.
Yes.
Like show up and, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these threats are terrible. They're saying they're going to get you kicked off the sports team. Your scholarship is going to get revoked. They'll, hack your school website and put the photos on there. Just really, vile things. And, at the end of the day, these scammers are after money. So what we did is we created a fake gift card redeem website, which we controlled, and we sent the gift card redemption code to the criminal. And of course, as soon as he entered that code, we had his exact GPS coordinates.
Good.
So again, like most of these criminals, he was based out of a remote village near Ibadan in Nigeria. And so the very next week, Jordan and documentary crew fly all the way out from the UK to Nigeria and knock on this guy's door to actually confront him about it.
Okay, will you send us the link to that? I want to make sure. Is it live?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. We need to share that.
Y'all can include a clip in this. That would be great.
Yeah, everybody needs to see that. You need to show your kids this. You need to be like, hey, this is why I'm delaying your ability to use these apps that I know your friends have and you want. This is why I don't want you on a platform that allows for anonymous chat with anybody who can just create a persona. This is the why. These are the people who are coming after people like you. They need to see this. They need to know what's really happening. I have a very visual memory. Whatever, I guess everybody does. But like what I mean by that is I can still see that LinkedIn post that you made that went viral. A very, very easy and tangible tips that the platforms could have done right away to make their platform safer. And they didn't. I just asked ChatGPT because, we're talking and I'm trying to be present, but I was like, what are some of the key recommendations that Paul Werfeil makes for making platforms safer? So I'm going to read them to you and tell me if this is accurate.
Yeah.
Okay. So one is to just rethink platform design and age policies. Right now, Instagram basically acts as a massive directory of teens that predators exploit. So, if the visibility of a youth profile makes targeting easier, let's make it less visible. Like, for example, if you go try to find a teen on Instagram, their profile might be private, but like their bio is public and it's like, find me on Snapchat at this username, CHS class of 27. Like you can figure out where they are and what, like, it doesn't have to be that way.
And the fact that most teens, if they get a friend request, they're going to accept it anyway, just to see who it is.
100%.
So the private account thing is really just a facade.
Right. Exactly. The second thing was build proactive detection and response. It's like, how about that?
Who would have thought?
Yeah, beyond reactive content removal, maybe they should invest, instead of fire, teams that can handle proactive detection of sextortion flows and predatory behavior patterns. Use AI to detect signals that human exploitation analysts, can use to spot abuse before it escalates into harm. How about that? Maybe.
Right. And one of the most shocking things to me was the fact that these criminals are using the same scripted messages. And it is so easy to detect, like, if that text matches this text, block it. Put
it into a queue to review.
Exactly. Quarantine it until it's been approved.
Right. Like if I take a picture of like a bloody arm or a firearm and try to post it, there are platforms that'll be like, this violates our content policies and won't let me. Why are we not doing that for protecting children?
Who knows?
Right.
We all know.
Well, we know, but right. Well, which takes me to what ChatGPT says is your number 3, which is to improve transparency and accountability. These platforms are not transparent about their safety gaps. They will not own up to it. Nor will they be clear about what actions they're taking other than saying, oh, we have new parental controls that are going to go by the, Movie Picture Association guidelines for PG-13. And it's like, and even the Motion Picture Association of America was like, they didn't ask us about that. So it's just like so silly. And it's smoke and mirrors. Like, we don't need high level reports, but we need specifics. We can't address the problems if we don't have the data. And at Bark, every year we report on the rate at which children are encountering harms on platforms. We're sharing the data to help improve safety. They should be too. 4 is to collaborate better with law enforcement and LEO specialists. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but it has been cumbersome in the past to get the info that law enforcement needed from these platforms. They were tight-lipped and not helpful in a fast manner.
Yeah, and to that, I'll talk briefly about a case involving Jordan DeMay.
Please.
Jordan was a 17-year-old from Michigan. He was targeted at 11 p.m. on Instagram by a sextortion scammer. Over the course of the next 6 hours, Jordan was groomed, coerced, and then blackmailed and threatened. He died by suicide within 6 hours of the initial contact. He was, a star athlete. He had everything going for him. He was ready to go on the family vacation the next morning, bag packed and everything. He was found the next morning by his dad with a handgun in one hand and his phone last open to Instagram in the other. And when law enforcement came and investigated, they had a hunch that it could have been sextortion. And eventually that hunch turned into something more material because Jordan's friends started to receive these images. So they knew exactly what it was. When law enforcement from Marquette, Michigan submitted an emergency request to Meta to shut down this account and provide the data about this suspicious account, Meta denied that request. And during that denial, during this period that it took extra time for this law enforcement to come back with another request, an additional 4 kids were sextorted by that same account. So there's so much more that can be done during these exigent circumstances. Meta's reasoning at the time was that it didn't meet the threshold for an emergency data request. It had this
life.
This account had already killed 1 kid and was going on to extort multiple others.
What is the threshold, Meta? I mean,
so what is the threshold at that point?
There's a few more.
Yeah.
Unless they missed some and there's more you could.
Sure.
The next one is to empower users and families with tools, actual tools that work, not like the fluff parental controls that they say they have. Recognizing grooming and scam tactics to begin with and surfacing where to report these threats, right? Not being a blocker, but a facilitator to help the children that they're monetizing. The next one is to advocate for smarter regulation. I mean, one of the larger questions here is, in that instance, any reasonable human would think that Meta should be held accountable for that egregious lack of protection. But under our current laws, there's nothing that says that they have to do anything. And that needs to change. And this isn't just a spotlight on Meta. I mean, it's Snapchat, it's TikTok, it's not just Meta.
Right.
Next thing is to prioritize harm reduction over engagement metrics. How about instead of prioritizing growth and engagement, we try to prioritize the reduction in the rate of sextortion and bullying and disordered eating related content and content that teaches children how to cut and starve themselves and misinformation. I mean, anyway, so this is what ChatGPT said that you would say are some tactics to help make platforms safer. What did they miss, if anything?
Yeah, I think ChatGPT did a decent job this time around.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's really fascinating. I'll throw one more in there. And, this example is from TikTok, actually. And if you had asked me this question a year ago, is TikTok on the top 3 or a risk for sextortion? My answer would have been no.
Okay.
But this has changed in the past year.
Wow.
And really just in the past few months, actually. So several months ago, it was reported that TikTok was working on photo sharing within direct messages. Prior to this, TikTok only would allow you to share like public content on the platform within direct messages.
Right.
Or you could send text messages through the direct messages. Now, these employees internally were concerned about the risk of sextortion if they would allow, photos and videos to be shared in direct messages. And these employees went public. They went to the media about it. And there was a report from The Information about this whole risk and how employees were trying to stop it. Despite these concerns, TikTok rolled ahead with the planned feature anyway. So now anyone above 16 can send photos and videos in direct messages on TikTok.
Anyone that TikTok thinks is above 16, and we know children lie about their age. Please
exactly.
Continue.
So if you actually look at the chart of like sextortion incidents that are happening on TikTok all through 21, 22, it's very low, 23, it's very low, 2024, it's also still very low. And this year, it has just absolutely spiked. It was so predictable and foreseeable that when they rolled out this feature, there would be a tsunami of new harm coming with it. And at the time, the TikTok employees said, oh, of course, we're going to have safeguards in place. Of course, we're going to prevent this from happening. The data shows otherwise. So they didn't have the safeguards that they thought they had in place.
It's so frustrating. And like, not that there's a counter argument, but for example, people get hurt by cars. We don't pull the cars off the road, but we do employ seat belts and stop signs, stop lights, laws, driver's ed. If you're driving under the influence, you lose your license. Like we implement some safety precautions that we can use a really cool technological advancement to get places faster, right?
And then if the car manufacturer lies about the safety features, then they can get sued.
Right. Right now, the largest social media companies do not have to legally comply with meaningful measures that would keep children safer on their platform. And that needs to change. Not that they're watching, but they attended the webinar that you spoke at. People from Snap and Meta and others, they were there. There were over 350 people who attended that webinar to try to fight sextortion and human exploitation and trafficking across the globe. So maybe some are watching, and I would just implore you to please make the right choice for protecting humanity over growth and engagement user metrics. I mean, children are dying. What excuse is there? There is no excuse. It's common sense, right? Unless I'm crazy. Am I crazy?
No, and you're totally right. I think financially motivated sextortion is one of the only forms of child exploitation that is completely preventable. These criminals are not after the photos or the videos. They're after $50. And, these are scammers. If we put enough hurdles in the way of them doing sextortion, they'll just move on to another scam. And I'm not saying those scams are okay to do, but it's less kids being groomed and exploited and killing themselves because of this. So if they want to move back into romance scams or crypto scams, so be it.
Elder fraud.
But it's terrible, but they've got to stop killing kids, and the platforms have to do more to prevent this from being the go-to scam for these criminals, because it's just so easy for them to do it. That's the only reason they're doing this, is because they're able to make money so fast, so quickly. They're creating so many fake social media accounts with no barriers in place. And they're getting more money now doing financial sextortion, getting $50 from a couple dozen kids every week versus, the long con of a romance scam waiting several months before they finally ask, an elderly victim for $3,000 or $10,000. They're making their money this way now.
So from my perspective, Meta really missed out by not adding you to the team. That could have been a real win for humanity and children. We won't go into that, but because of their loss, other entities and organizations have been able to win because of your time and expertise and thought leadership. Can you speak about what you're working on now, who you're working with, who you're open to work with, like everybody who has the ability to utilize your expertise to make the internet safer for kids should do that?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've been working. Financial institutions are taking this very seriously. I'm helping consult with a few of them on how to detect these payments, how to make their platforms safer, to make this not the go-to crime. What else? Additional awareness, I think, is key. So I've been working on several documentaries about this topic. You might see one here in the U.S. pretty soon, next year. But yeah, stay tuned. Keeping busy.
Okay, wonderful. Now, we've talked about just the what is happening, how it's happening, what platforms could be doing, but they're not, to stop it from happening. I do want to give some hope to people. And after everything you've seen, what gives you hope that we can make the internet safer for kids?
Yeah, so legislation has been kind of a tricky battle here.
Yeah.
There have been a few things like the Take It Down Act, which criminalizes sextortion federally and adds the penalty that adds to criminal penalties. There's actually just last week, the Stop Sextortion Act was introduced in the Senate, so excited about that. However, I think the biggest game changer here is the Kids Online Safety Act. It's known as KOSA, and this would provide a duty of care for platforms in order to design the platforms in a safe way, even for children users of those platforms. And it provides, legal recourse if the platform is designed in an unsafe manner. And the Kids Online Safety Act, it passed the Senate last year, 92-3. It was very exciting.
And bipartisan, very incredible.
Bipartisan. Yeah. We had the majority of the state's attorney generals even send a letter to Mike Johnson to pass it in the House, because it had already passed the Senate. We had even Microsoft broke ranks from big tech to support KOSA. Snapchat broke ranks from big tech to support KOSA. And everyone thought it was going to pass in the House, if it was brought up for a vote. And so, there's one person in the House of Representatives that can choose whether or not something even comes up for a vote, and that's the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who's from Louisiana. Several weeks before the end of the congressional session last year, Meta announced a pretty hefty donation in the sum of $10 billion to build a data center in what state of all states? Louisiana.
How about that?
So while KOSA had this huge momentum and the support bipartisan from both parties, it wasn't even brought up for a vote in the House of Representatives. It would have passed. And, we see the timing of this $10 billion commitment from Meta to Louisiana just weeks before the end of the congressional session. It's not a coincidence.
Why is there not a massive petition being sent to Mike Johnson? Does he have kids?
I don't know. We should start one. Link in the description.
Yeah. How could you? How could you?
Right. That's just putting, profit of people and safety, in my opinion.
I would Mike, if you want to come on the podcast and defend that, you're welcome, but all I have right now are what are the facts? And the facts are it did not come up for vote, and this donation came to the state of Louisiana from Meta. So let's unpack that. So that actually, I asked what gives you hope.
Oh, okay. So that's okay. So I'll turn it into hope. Okay.
Is there hope?
Is there hope? The Kids Online Safety Act has been reintroduced in the House again, but this time this year, it was the piece that actually had liability on the social media platforms has been removed. So now this legislation has no fangs anymore, the House version. So there's still the Senate version. And I think what we need to push for is the Senate version, because that actually has legal accountability and liability if the platforms don't perform their duty of care. So we can hope for the Senate version to pass.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This is so... I just do better. Do better. Children are being harmed every single day. If there was a cereal or a bicycle or a toy that hurt just one kid and then maybe another kid, it would be recalled. Yet nothing is happening, and it is not okay. So the people in positions of power to make it better, you need to do something, and you need to start yesterday. We're doing what we can at Bark. Paul is doing what he can to raise awareness, educate, consult, but we're just two people, so we need help. For people to learn more about what you're doing, to support your efforts, where should they go? What should they know?
Yeah, so I think, final note for parents on the topic of sextortion. I think every parent has the conversation, never send a nude photo, just don't do it.
Right.
But I think, we need to have a part 2 of that conversation, which says, if you find yourself in a compromising situation, if it happens, come to us, let us know, give the kids a soft landing space. They know that they might have done something wrong. They know that they might have gotten themselves into a little bit of trouble, but they're the victim in this situation. So give them that soft landing space so they don't feel like they're alone, because that's exactly what the criminals will want them to do. It's part of the scripted messages. Your parents will be ashamed of you. They would hate you. All these things. They are driving the wedge between the victim and the parents. So I think just kind of preempting that and having this conversation, let them know what the scam looks like. It's targeting boys 14 to 17 in majority. The criminals there pretending to be a young girl and sending the nude photo first, so the victim thinks it's less risky for them to do so. So those are clear signs. Like, once you know those signs, it's so obvious what to look out for. So have those conversations. Let them know what this scam looks like. If you know how a scam works, you're 80% less likely to fall for it.
Yes.
So let's take some power in that.
Oh my gosh. As you were talking, I was thinking about some content that we should create to just specifically talk to the parents of boys ages 14 to 17, because a lot of them don't know how to talk to your kids about that sort of thing. It's awkward, right? It's not easy. So we'll be rolling that out. It's just too important. There's too many lives at risk. Paul Rafile, everyone. It's heavy. This is not like a lighthearted thing, but you need to know what's happening. And Paul is one of the top experts in the globe that I turn to keep tabs on what's happening and who needs to be held accountable. So, Paul Rafile, thank you so much for being here and all that you do.
Thank you for having me.